And we're live. Welcome back to the LOOPCast. Today joined by Josh and Erica. And I've decided
the Vikings are 4-0.
It's a Viking mug.
We should have done over-under bets on how long into the program Josh was going to bring up the Vikings. And what was
under
that, like
10
3 seconds,
like
4 seconds?
Under 5.
Yeah, someone could have made some money. I was going to say we might have to change into a pizza podcast.
Oh my gosh.
I've never seen more engagement in my life.
I've never been so disappointed.
The pizza debate. Thank you for throwing flames in that, Josh.
Hey, you know something? I just feel vindicated once again by the chat. The people understand, and the people
are here for Mercer.
And a big fat 0 for New Haven Pizza. I feel so great about that.
What's the Latin phrase? Is it Vox Populi, Vox Dei?
That's right. Voice of the people, man.
That's kind of you. That's kind of you. Do you have any other pizza takes you want to rip off before we get into?
Oh my gosh.
Well, actually, pepperoni is like the default meat, but Italian sausage is 1,000 times better. And it just shows like on so many things, like the main thing. Oh, chocolate. No, caramel's better than chocolate. Oh, everyone's like bacon's the best. No, breakfast sausage is better than bacon. I don't care. That's just the truth.
I can get on board with that. Erica,
I'm German.
I'm not even going to touch it. I would say I'd rather have hot sausage than the mild Italian sausage.
There you go.
But,
either way, it's all good.
Either way, the sausage.
Bacon's like my 5th favorite breakfast meat.
Huh. Fascinating. I do love my bacon.
Next holiday draft episode, breakfast meats.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
That'd be contentious.
Just breakfast in general. Breakfast is such a great meal. I could eat it 3 times a day.
But I'd like to give a warm welcome to everyone here joining live in the chat. We're live across many platforms now, but mostly on YouTube. Shout out to everyone in our live chat there. I see we got a new Ave graduate, I think a nephew. Congratulations to them.
Congratulations.
But, hey, if you like what we're doing here, subscribe. Leave a like on this episode for us. Helps us out a ton. We have a lot to get into today. It's going to be a busy Monday. I also want to put out there, tomorrow, we have a vice presidential debate. We're going to get into a little bit of prep on that, but we will be live. So if you'd like to join us live, we'll be streaming all over the place, but mostly on YouTube. You guys can see that live with us, hang out in the chat, go over the craziest reactions.
Speaking of the chat, it is amazing that, and I say this as a positive, the disproportionate number of people from the North and South Dakota. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Good people.
We're hot in the Dakotas. The LOOPCast is big in the Dakotas.
That's it.
That's awesome.
Love my Dakota people. Okay, so first thing we're going to get into here, probably Catholic highlight from the weekend. We have Trump tweeting the St. Michael prayer. Not on my bingo card
for the Trump campaign.
For the Trump campaign, we get a pure, and maybe we could just say here, St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our defense against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly hosts, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruins of souls. Amen.
Amen.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. And he even went with the old English version, so you know he's legit. He went, and do thou. If you're not saying do thou, what are we doing?
I mean, here's the other thing too. He did. This is just a few weeks after he gave a shout out to the Blessed Virgin Mary on her birthday. I mean, so this
Lady of Guadalupe. Yeah,
I know. This is.
They've got some Catholic. They've got some Catholic literacy going on at the Trump campaign this time around. I just do have to say, for all their faults, they have that Catholic literacy. This is good.
Respecting the Mother of God and
calling on the Archangel
and the Prince, who took care of the devil. Yeah,
I love that feast day. My kids love that feast day because Archangels, none of this little bambini with the wings and the fat little cherubs with the bare bottoms. This is Archangels with swords. My kids.
Oh yes, I mean the 9-foot tall statue of St. Michael I have in my yard here. With
that
sword.
one.
You have a 9-foot tall St. Michael statue.
Dude, come to Northern Michigan, the Grotto of the Archangels, brother. We have all 3 archangels, and I will tell you, they're just like Erica said. They're not little cherubs, little fat babies with wings. Yeah. These guys look like they could kick your butt, and they're willing to. And
they could.
There's a big devotion to the archangels in my neck of the woods, and that's why the high school's named here St. Michael, and we had a big Michael Mass celebration. So yeah, dude, I love it.
Yeah, I feel like in Michigan there's a lot of different ones. There's the St. Gabriel's that's pretty popular as well. Maybe Trump's new motto could be "Speak softly and pray the St. Michael prayer."
There you go. I like that.
I don't think the first half he's going to be able to do that well.
But you know what? This is very nice to see, of course. And some people be like, "Oh my gosh, it's pandering." One, could you imagine? We just had a Catholic president. I didn't hear St. Michael mentioned one time. Could you imagine him tweeting this?
Oh my gosh, no.
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 0% chance. And two, something I don't think that people would know as publicly. I did an interview with one of his former speechwriters, and he was telling me in that speechwriting room, over half the staff was Catholic, and not just culturally Catholic. We're talking mass attending
Intentionally
Catholic.
so.
He attended mass with them, and I realized this because I was listening to old Trump speeches, especially his Christmas message, and the language used was clearly someone in there understood, went to mass, understands Catholic theology. It's just you can tell when someone, and you can also tell when someone says, "Hey, I'm Catholic," but then they don't know. They're shaking your hand and sign a peace. No, I'm just kidding. Or holding hands during.
Oh, you put your foot in it there.
Sorry, no. I said,
yeah.
I meant holding hands during the Our Father. No, but
yep,
you guys
very
know what
good.
I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying. They just
Yeah,
either they
100%.
don't know the update to the mass or whatever.
Well, I think it comes back to like, what are we really about this election? And what you're putting your finger on with the Trump speeches is that clearly there are people informing him on that like army, if you will, since we're using military, St. Michael imagery here, that we really are. There's a Catholic anthropology and understanding of the purpose of government and human flourishing that the Trump campaign is at least open to, if not grounded in, versus the other side of the aisle, which is completely anti. I mean, it is communist, it is Marxist, where the state is the God, right? The state is the end all be all, and individuals exist to serve as cogs in the wheel for the state. And that's the opposite. So I think that Catholic informed sensibility does come through. And he's more surrounded by Catholics.
But it's also that the left will only invoke religion in order to mobilize it against people who actually believe in it.
It's a tool.
It's like you are allowed to celebrate your faith so long as you consider the government your ideal, your idol. You have to be fully on board with the sexual revolution, including abortion, trans surgery on minors, everything. You have to, and then if you actually believe all that and believe in race, hustling, the DEI, all that garbage. If you believe the entire left-wing agenda, then okay, you can go to church on Sunday. We don't care. But so long as you don't ever let your belief in Jesus Christ infuse how you look at other people, like, maybe we shouldn't treat women and children like this. Maybe we shouldn't, have everyone at each other's throat with like this, DEI racist hatred stuff. But no, I mean, the left loves to invoke Catholicism or Christianity in order to weaponize it against believers. That's why Kamala Harris has her whole Catholics for Harris stuff.
Yeah, it's like Phil Vischer Christianity.
Oh my gosh! Did you
safest,
see that debate go crazy on the internet?
Yeah, Matt Walsh had one of the best clips I think I've ever seen.
I would recommend everyone watch that. I thought that was fantastic.
Unbelievable.
Did you get to see the whole thing?
Oh. I did. I watched
the whole thing. But I'd say if you don't have time for the last 4 minutes, were just a masterclass in basically to set up the debate. It's the dude who made VeggieTales is he's basically a pro-abortion Christian, very soft, very progressive. And he does this podcast, I think, with two other kind of evangelical pastors. And one of them said that Matt Walsh wasn't living the Beatitudes and he's fighting the culture war and that they're at odds with each other. And Matt Walsh's response video on what the culture war actually is was phenomenal and gets the blood flowing and it's everything that should be. And
I would recommend every listener listen to it.
I almost can't even say it is good, but it's a little bit long, so I'm not going to play it. But I can put it in the description.
Please.
But it's the idea that the brand of Christianity that, say, the Biden administration or progressives alike are one where it stays in your head or in your churches and it never leaves. It never actually influences any of your decisions, any of the things you have to publicly stand on and speak about, any policy changes, people you vote for. It shouldn't impact it, right? Church and state. And Matt Walsh's argument, of course,
it's basically like who you cheer for your sports team.
Right. Yeah. But Matt Walsh's argument basically is that if Jesus Christ really means anything to you, what did Jesus come to do? He came to change the world. He was revolutionary. He was killed for it. And if we're not actually aggressively fighting against sin in our current world, then what are we doing? You're not actually taking the words of Jesus and acting on them. So anyone that tells you that somehow Jesus's message was a passive one and involves being nice, which Jesus, of course, never said, is lying to you, and they're basically trying to control you.
Yeah, 100%. That totally reminds me, I got to go on Friday. I got to go to the Family Institute of Connecticut Gala that Peter Wolfgang runs. And one, it just like huge shout out to the work that all the family institutes are doing. Talk about like defeating bills that are just of the devil. But Eric Metaxas, who's a well-known biographer, he's a Protestant. He's a Protestant like podcaster, writer. His most famous book is the biography of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was martyred by the Nazis. And he gave a rip-roaring speech exactly along those lines. So just shout out to any Protestant evangelical brothers in the chat. Eric Metaxas gave super great speech on Friday here. So read Bonhoeffer, very inspirational.
It definitely goes across denomination lines, by the way, because there's plenty of Catholics. I mean,
absolutely, and we've had about 3 generations of Christians, both evangelical and Catholic alike, who have felt bullied into silence and have been told to kind of keep their mouth shut and sit down and go to church, but don't ever try to talk about your reviews or force it on anyone else. And look, I'm not trying to force anyone to go to Catholic church. Right. I just want us to stop murdering babies in the womb and stop, this horrible thing we have on the border where women and children are exploited and sexually assaulted in hopes of getting to this country, and then have my government just, spend money like it's going on crazy. And it's like porno books and libraries. Like, this is a problem, people. Like, this is what we're against, like, I'm not trying to force you to go to mass on Sunday. I just want not, I don't know, smut-free libraries. What an idea.
Basic decency would be nice. Yeah.
Book burner. Okay. We'll move on. So we have some really, really devastating impacts from Hurricane Helene. So pray for the repose of the soul. It seems like, or appears that 107 people have been reported dead. At least a third of them in North Carolina. North Carolina appears to have gotten the brunt of the fallout afterwards. I mean, there's just entire towns in Appalachia that are gone. It's some of the most shocking footage I've seen in recent history. Just completely underwater.
At one point, at the city of Asheville, which is a pretty large city in western North Carolina, there's 2 freeways going into it. So all 4 points were completely flooded out and shut down. Literally, the only way you could get to Asheville was by air.
Yeah. 2 million in the state without power right now, and it's looking dire. So please pray for all that really shocking footage. And it looks like it's not going to be an easy fix. And so, of course, the attention turns to what is the federal response to an emergency. I've seen projections. It's about $113 billion in that range of damage in total. It's going to take months and months to fully recover from this.
Years.
And so we're seeing a couple different federal responses here. One, President Trump has just announced he's going to be visiting Georgia, another place that's got hit by it. And then we have Biden, I think, sent FEMA. So FEMA has been weaponized to go. Not weaponized.
Activated. Dispatch. There you go. A lot of weaponization going on.
So one thing that came up in all of this.
Did you hear that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis also sent his National Guard to North Carolina to help them out? That's awesome.
Guys of force. But one question I had for you guys, and I feel my youth sometimes with this, but I know there's a general consensus that people don't like FEMA. I remember especially liberals at one point don't like FEMA. I remember the whole George Bush doesn't like black people thing from Kanye. That's the extent of my knowledge of why people don't like FEMA. My instinct is it's probably pretty bureaucratic and slow, and there's been a lot of fraud involved with FEMA funds. Why in general is there this consensus that FEMA is not going to solve this problem?
Well, part of it started that, George W. Bush was a pretty crappy president. And he appointed Michael Brown. He raised horses. He put him in charge of FEMA because he donated a lot of money. Just the whole agency was run terribly. But by the way, that's kind of par for the course. Honestly, a lot of these agencies, political appointees, and they're not well run. And you can't fire employees. If someone screws up, they just stay. This is exactly the problem with Afghanistan. The generals that were responsible for screwing that up, they're still there. They're still collecting a paycheck. They're still employed. They should have got their behinds fired in an instant. So the problem is you can have a good 10, 15% of employees in any government agency that are just kind of there collecting a paycheck and slowing everything down. And that's kind of writ large. It's very, very hard to fire a federal employee. They make it nearly impossible. So you do have a lot of this incompetence. You don't have, on the state level, governors are much more able to, through their appointees, get rid of bad employees and make it a little bit more accountable. But federal agencies are terrible.
Yeah, I think too, it speaks to just the general distrust of all of our federal institutions right now, and not just general, but general and intensive. But it's exacerbated by things that come out. Like if you Google like FEMA inefficiency, what comes out? There's like the last 3 years they've had all of these like efficiency and effectiveness and equity in FEMA climate change policy. So it's this language of equity, this language of they're addressing climate change, they're concerned about it's. You get the sense from these efforts out of FEMA that they're more interested in catering to woke sensibilities, liberal agenda. They want to do equity, they want to do climate change. It's these buzzwords versus they were founded to actually like get people food and water no matter what. And I see in the chat, yeah, FEMA is good. The intention is very good behind FEMA. They do a lot of good work. But I think what we're talking about here is, like Josh said, the problem with federal agencies is that there is no willingness to cut through the red tape to get help to people in many of these cases.
Well, and look at what has been the story of the federal government in the 21st century. You start with 9/11. I mean, obviously that's an intelligence failure on a massive order.
Yeah.
Then you have the Iraq War, which is totally botched and bungled. Then you have Afghanistan being dragged into that forever. And then FEMA disaster with Hurricane Katrina. So it's just, and then what, the stock market meltdown of 07, 08, and all the housing. There's been a lot of L's on board for the federal government over the last 25 years.
Do you guys remember?
It's not a good track record.
Do you remember specifically what the frustration was with Katrina and FEMA?
Well, I mean, Katrina was absolutely one. I mean, here's the thing. The city of New Orleans is actually below sea level.
Yeah.
It's a few feet below sea level. And the thing is this is one of the things they warn you about forever. If they ever had a hurricane, like Category 5 hurricane, hit a direct hit on the city, the whole thing would be flooded. There's just nowhere for the water to go. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, it hit it dead center. And it was just, the whole city was completely underwater. I mean, unmanageable. It's horrible. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Their response was to shepherd all these people into the stadium, right? And dozens of people ended up dying in there because they couldn't get.
Superdome.
It was a Superdome, and that alone. So it wasn't particularly FEMA. I forget who was in charge of the Superdome, but that was a disaster, and you could like watch people dying of thirst real time. It was absolutely devastating.
I mean, you basically need to get the CEO of Chick-fil-A to become the new FEMA director, and we get stuff done, man. Let me tell you what.
That's right. Oh, and speaking of getting someone else in charge, let's talk about internet access. Over the weekend in Western North Carolina, as all this is unfolding, it just goes black, right? There is no cell phone service. There is no internet. People don't know what's going on in there. And there's a lot of criticism of, okay, why isn't the media covering this? Well, they should have had more headlines, yes. But at the same time, there's just nothing to cover. Like, it's just today we're starting to actually get stories of what happened to people who were in there. Maybe. However,
let Erica finish here.
Can we just ask, why was there no internet, right? We're at an age where we understand like the infrastructure, but do two-step thinking here. Kamala Harris was given $42 billion to connect rural America to the internet. Not only that, but she was given the Trump administration, before he was gone, they had contracted with Starlink, with Elon Musk, to get Starlink to rural America. Of course, the Biden administration comes in and there's like, nope, cutting that off. But had they just done the deed and gotten Starlink out there, that this would have been a much lesser disaster. So absolutely, I put this. This was a fascinating story, I thought, coming out of it. The Starlink saviors here. So you get these reporters. Nick Sorter, he's there in Western North Carolina. He brings his Starlink. Now, Starlink devices are now about the size of a notepad, right? You can stick them in your backpack and carry them around. They're amazing. They become very efficient. There should have been multiples of these everywhere. So he and another reporter friend of his, they set up two satellite Starlink stations for public use. One in where were we? Downtown. Yep, downtown Asheville. Okay. They get their Starlinks out, and those are the only points of contact with the outside world over the weekend for a number of hours. And they're saying, we're going to pay for this ourselves. Don't worry. Just spread the word. Anyone who needs to get contact with their families outside of this area, come down to the DoubleTree. And this was amazing. But what I'm like, this is the short-sightedness of the Harris walls of the Biden, that machine, right? Because when you fail to provide the basic necessities that you have promised to provide for people, who's going to come in and do that? Elon Musk is going to come in and say, internet for everyone. They're not going to get it done. In I come, right? And then they start whining. Then they're like, oh my gosh, he's not a federal actor. He's not the government. He shouldn't be doing this. Well, what do you think is going to happen? If you fail to do your job, someone else is going to do it. Trump is going to come distribute water and food.
Maybe the only way Biden-Harris administration will get involved if the people of North Carolina go to Mexico and then cross the border illegally. Maybe then they'll get debit cards, food, water, housing.
Yeah, someone else tweeted out and they were like, oh, so everyone in North Carolina is now going to get free hotel room, a debit card, and free cell phones to use, free throwaway phones to use, because that's what we do to the illegal.
Oh, that's only for people who enter the country illegally, not our actual brother citizens. Yeah, nice.
I mean, yeah, so a few of the things that come to mind, and I'm seeing people in the chat say this, and this is what I think I remember as well. There's a lot of fraud in terms of the relief money that came from FEMA. Someone was saying a lot of people got their gift cards and got new Louis Vuitton, Gucci gear, staying with relatives in Texas, Northern LA.
Whatever, right?
Right, exactly. So getting the money and not using it properly. And it reminds me a lot of the COVID relief too. American Rescue Plan, so much of that money was fraudulently taken. And of course, what does this all do? It adds to inflation, which is the most unethical tax you can put on your citizens. So there's that going on, which I'm sure is probably going to happen with FEMA. It always happens with federal response. They're not close enough to the ground. And then there's the other element of this is like, how many billions of dollars have we now... Okay, so if you brought up the immigration point, like billions and billions of dollars we've spent on people who are here illegally, giving them hotels, giving them food, that just should not be in the country. Many of which we're going to get into this of shocking crime report and all of that. Oh my God. But then also the money that we're currently giving to Ukraine, to Israel, far outpaces. So we just got an estimate. What it's going to be like 113 billion in damage. I'm sure that's probably too low. That's money. Like, this is money that should be being spent on Americans, right? And we can't right now, unless, what do we have to do? Print more money, which is going to inflate our dollar even more. So it's like we've screwed ourselves.
Maybe if we convince the neocons in Washington, D.C. that we should invade North Carolina, then maybe they'll spend money on building it up.
Yeah. Although I saw that Roy Cooper, even another interesting part of this, both Kamala and Trump, of course, are going to try to go to these areas. And Joe Biden, who knows what Joe Biden is doing right now? I think he said we've given enough. There's a bad quote of him. He's just really old and can't speak properly. That's what I'm attributing it to. But he's like, we don't need people to come do photo ops because the amount of security required and resources required to bring people to those areas. I do, and I can speak from personal experience, not to throw anyone under the bus, but I was in Florida during Hurricane Irma, and I remember I wanted to help because fortunately Ave Maria has hurricane-proof buildings, but the surrounding area, Immokalee, is all blown away, completely blown away to Category 4 hurricane. A lot of them came and stayed in our field house. Anyway, all gets blown away. And so they're saying, okay, we need volunteers to help get water and food to people in those areas. I'm like, okay, sign me up. I mean, everyone was just hands on deck trying to do what they can because there wasn't a lot going on. Obviously, internet was knocked out, all these other things. Power was knocked down in a lot of places. We're just trying to help. So I go and I'm told I'm going to be there to hand out food and water, get it off the trucks, get it to people. And then all of a sudden we get ushered into this non-denominational church in a lot. And I was like, wait a second. And I'm starting to see machine guns. I'm like, wait a second. This is strange. Sure enough, we all get patted down. We got metal detectors. We're all ushered in this building. We're brought back out. Guess who's out there?
Obama.
Mike Pence.
Mike Pence.
Mike Pence came down and we sat and he gave a speech and then he handed one pallet of water bottles out and then he left. And then we were there and like, this was the whole thing. We ended up working for like 20 minutes. So I get that on the whole. And maybe the argument for that is that it brings in more donations, I guess,
I
or
must feel like
attention
doing
from
a
the
Trump
outside.
impersonation. Who would even go after Pence?
But it
They're
did kind
coming
of.
for me.
I just remember feeling very disillusioned with the whole thing because I was like, I came here to help, and I got put in a photo op, and it felt like nothing got done. So maybe the positive is that outside attention came, but at the time I was like, this feels kind of wrong. So I can see why they wouldn't want that in North Carolina.
I get that.
So yeah. Anyway, hope that all improves. Let's pray that gets better. Sorry, I'm just bumbling on my words today. Second story we have today: Kamala Harris Friday visited the border for the second time. It is her first time visiting the border in Arizona, and maybe it'll work. I don't know. 30, 40 days before the election, we're now going. Shoot your shot, Kamala. I don't know. It can't get worse.
Who wrote this line? U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has made a rare trip to the U.S.-Mexico border. Rare as in the first one. Is
BBC.
that right? BBC?
Look, I have the BBC article right here. I'll show it.
Oh my gosh.
I was surprised too that they use this language.
I was like, rare? It's the first time.
Here we go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's just.
She talked about how she owns a gun. She's going to the border. She's trying to convince low information voters that somehow she's conservative. I just don't think it's going to work. And that's why the Michigan Democratic Senate candidate, Elise Slotkin, said over the weekend that her internal poll numbers that from her own campaign show Kamala Harris down in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was surprising too.
Yeah.
So what was interesting to me, and I spent a lot of time this morning trying to find this transcript. I had to literally watch the speech that she gave. Well, first off, there was a photo op at the border, which she got ripped for. They literally brought her up. She was there for a couple minutes and then went right away. All the cameras left. And she didn't speak to anyone on the ground. She didn't speak to any Border Patrol officers themselves. They were all the management. And then she went and delivered a scripted speech in which she said that now people crossing illegally will be criminally punished. I believe she said 5 years until they can come back.
Oh, right.
And this is
just basically
you laugh at that.
Just wait till January if I get elected.
Right.
Yeah.
You laugh at that, Josh, but that's a huge flip from no human is illegal. I remember, I was alive. I know. I feel like I'm going crazy here.
It's almost like they're lying.
Yeah, it's anything to get elected. Like, who said that? Bernie Sanders, right? Just a couple of weeks ago, he's like, yeah, well, she thinks she's saying what needs to be said to get elected. And that's exactly what's going on.
AOC would sound just like this if she were the presidential nominee.
Yeah.
Well, she's also familiar with photo ops at the border.
Yes.
One of my favorites, probably.
Yeah,
but so Josh, to your point on strategy, though, so here's a little graphic of how many times she's tweeted about the border. 2 times in 2021, 0 times 2022, 0 times 2023. We have 9.
7 times last year.
Or 7 times. Then we have 15 times in the last 3 months.
Right.
So it does feel like
Talk about pandering.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the response from the Trump campaign just has to be over and over again until everyone's sick of it. Then why haven't you done it yet? Right. Why haven't you done it yet? You are the border czar. Yes, I'm going to call you that. I know it's like, oh, she wasn't really the border.
The internet provides the opportunity for people, hopefully, to wake up because every liberal campaigns as a conservative during the election season, and every Republican campaigns as a conservative during the elections. And then when they get to Washington, every liberal becomes a communist, and half the Republicans do too. It drives me crazy. Like, why don't you actually tell us what you're going to do and then do it? And that's why I know there are some Catholics who are upset with Donald Trump, and I will say this. Donald Trump is the only politician in my entire lifetime who was more conservative after he got elected than he was as a candidate. So I'm going to cut him a little slack.
So the other interesting element on the strategy of making this visit and becoming now all of a sudden a hawk on the border is she's picking up some criticism from people on the left, which to me, this is just such a no-win issue. I don't know why she's doing this. Kamala Harris's new old problem at the border. Boarding crosses are down and enforcement is up. But what about progressive goals?
Oh, boy.
Just, destroying the country.
Interesting. Yeah. Progressives are caught between 2 maxims. They can't give too much on the ground on their preferred policies, but they're wary of hurting Harris's campaign, in turn helping the anti-immigrant fanatic that is Donald Trump. The first priority was dominant once Harris was nominated, but now some activists worry that they're giving up too much in the name of political expediency. So she's picking up some criticism, as expected. I mean, this is the no humans are illegal crowd.
All right, here we go. You got to go to my first thing in the Twilight Zone because it relates to this.
Okay.
And then I have 2 Twilights, so I'll take the second one in that spot.
New song?
He's playing hard and
let's
fast
go.
with it. Oh yeah, let's do it. This is
A little
good.
inspiration for Kamala's visit to the border. Here we go.
I mean,
this is for my fellow Gen Xers.
Okay, here we go.
Wackos on the left to the MAGAs on the right. They know I'm beating Kamala. This race won't even be tied. Her policies are nuts. She's out her goddamn mind. She just repeats the same thing, regurgitating her lines. She thinks that immigration without paperwork is good. Clearly not too much power underneath Kamala's hood. Borders are. It's
Oh yeah.
Borders are. Cackling Kamala, you're done. Mass inflation in.
I just like to imagine that Josh just has this bumping in his earbuds at a couple points throughout the day. Need a little pick me up in the afternoon? Putting on some AI.
I loved that.
Well,
I loved that.
Josh, I'm glad you got us laughing.
In general, 90s music was terrible, but
I don't know about all that.
Not the alternative rock.
What about 3B? You know me and Erica.
Aries, love me my cramp. Third Eye Blind.
Speaking of,
well, they're not bad actually. I'll give you that.
Third Eye Blind's pretty sick. Motorcycle drive-bys.
You're gonna give it to me?
I'm gonna give that to you. But in general, I think like 80s music was so good, and then like then 91, and then just fell off for a good decade or two. I just switched right to country. All this stuff was garbage.
Speaking of, there's a what do you call it? A cover of a Cranberry song called "Linger." Have you heard that?
Yep, I do.
Like,
of course.
It went re-viral. Basically, went re-viral 5 months ago. I had never heard the song before I heard the cover, and man, is that catchy! That's all I have to say. I don't even know the original song, but the cover's sick.
All right.
Men my age know that song. Sing it to someone.
All right, Josh.
That's enough, Josh.
I don't like where this is going.
good.
I don't know where it's going. I don't like it. So
Now let it linger.
Now that we had a little bit of fun, I'm going to share this tab instead. Are we okay?
I think Josh is okay now. We're coming down. Yeah.
Gosh, the things I have to do to keep this show running is just
I know.
unbelievable.
You're very good. Go.
Thank you. Okay, so we get this report from Michael Schellenberg, and of course we bring up all the strategic points on why she visited the border, but this is what's really going on, right? This is all kind of like games to get elected, but even when I saw this, and I've seen a lot of border stuff, this one really shocked me. So new numbers. Of the 7 million migrants that ICE released while their cases are being processed, 663,000 have criminal histories, 13,000 were convicted of homicide, 16,000 of sexual assault, and 1,845 face homicide charges.
That was jaw-dropping.
It's hard to wrap your mind around that.
Oh my gosh. Well, I was trying to so distribute that. So it's not evenly distributed among all 50 states, obviously. But if it was, that would be over 13,200 criminal history, people with criminal history just being put into each state. I know they're not evenly distributed.
No, it's not that. It's just that statistics can kind of make someone's mind, go glaze over. I mean, in 1988, Michael Dukakis was running for president as the Democratic nominee, and he was leading George H. Bush by like 13 points. Everyone suspected that he was going to win. And George H. Bush's team said, wait a minute now, Willie Horton. What about Willie Horton? This was, by the way, people say Republicans are super racist for bringing this up. But it was actually, I believe, Al Gore who first brought this up. But Willie Horton was a criminal in Massachusetts who was let go on furlough. They gave these criminals like a 48-hour pass from jail. And it's like, what in the world? This is like the dumbest idea ever. Again, progressive ideas are totally insane. And this was when Michael Dukakis was governor. And this guy went on a furlough and went and killed somebody. And it's like, that person's dead now. Thank you. Because of your stupid policy. And that was one criminal killing one person. And that was enough to detour and destroy his campaign. And George H. Bush wins the presidency in 1988. Here we have a situation we're talking tens of thousands of people convicted who are suspected of murdering people are just allowed to flood the country. And sometimes the statistics can be kind of crazy. You forget the things. But let me give you something that's not a statistic. Laken Riley should be studying nursing at the University of Georgia, but she's dead because the Biden-Harris administration let a murderer into this country. So it's not just a statistic.
Yep. 100%. I think there's that line right from Stalin that was like, one death is a tragedy, a million is a statistic. So I think what you're doing, Josh, it's super important to always draw it back to these are the faces of the people who have died because of these policies. And it's not just one, right? As in Dukakis's case. I mean, we have dozens of people who have been sexually assaulted or kidnapped and murdered because as a direct result of these policies, of this practice. And these
it doesn't get more direct.
The Biden-Harris administration has blood on their hands, and the Christians, evangelicals, and Catholics who are promoting this wide open border have blood on their hands as well. A lot of misery has been created through this absolute lawless open border, and we need to shut it down.
Which I guess makes the whole visit that much more outrageous. This is her second time in her entire time in office, and we see these numbers get dropped conveniently on the same day.
Yeah, and they ask her, you're the border czar. Why don't you go to the border? Remember that? She tells Lester Holt, well, I've never been to Europe either.
Yeah, that was bad. That was one of the worst clips I've ever seen.
Such an idiot. By the way, I live in Michigan, so I see ads all the time, and let me tell you something. The average American voter in the swing state has seen that clip about a dozen times. It's just because they keep airing it because she's such an idiot for saying it, and she deserves it.
Yeah, it was bad.
But, yeah.
Yeah, the football ads have been interesting. Maybe we should do a breakdown episode of those. Just the wildest, most attention-grabbing one. Harris is for they, them. Trump is for you. Do you know that one?
Yes.
Oh,
I saw that when I was watching the game.
Good line.
I saw it on TV. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he did that.
I mean, what other social conservatives who are a little bit frustrated with Trump, and look, we share that concern, and we are told the campaign we are not with him on the IBF stuff, and we're gonna fight him on it if he gets elected president, guaranteed. But the fact of the matter is, have you ever in your entire lifetime remember when a Republican presidential candidate has invoked social conservatism in a favorable way on our side? Like running ads saying, stop, doing transgender surgeries on illegal immigrants, and fighting for, bathroom clarity instead of letting anyone who wants to go to the bathroom. I mean, I don't see George W. Bush doing this. I mean, he did a little bit of invoking on the marriage amendment, and then he completely backstabbed us afterwards. But Trump was actually more conservative after he got elected.
It was a bar. Trump's for they, them. And then he follows up with, I am Donald Trump. I endorse this message. It just cracks me up every time. I've seen it so many times. Okay, next topic. So on Friday, Trump met with Zelensky.
Yeah.
Now, we surfaced through a lot of news. This one was shocking to me. And the reason that Zelensky gave for visiting both, which of course, it's crazy you even have to answer that, is because he's not sure who's going to be president in November, even though he's been campaigning in Pennsylvania for Harris. That being said, he did meet with Trump, and I do give him credit. It was in Trump Tower in New York City on Friday. They met, and they told the press, that they seek a just and fair resolution to the Russo-Ukrainian war. This was after Harris met with Zelensky on Thursday, so he followed it right up. And they did have different tones, obviously. Tones in how they spoke, and then also the feeling. I mean, I'm going to go through a clip eventually, but it was palpable, the difference. It felt like Zelensky went into the White House like it was his vacation home, and in Trump Tower, it was like going into a lawyer's meeting or something that you're very uncomfortable about. I mean, hard to express. Yeah,
I thought of like the guilty little schoolboy approaching the principal's office. That was.
I wish it was so.
Yeah, and so from my favorite clip, and I had someone on staff send me this, and just like, this is just the social power moves on Trump. I don't know if we'll ever see it again, but this is when he met with Zelensky, and this is how he started the press conference. Notice there was no press conference for when Kamala Harris had him. They didn't speak to the press. Here we go.
Very honorably, I don't even know if you know this, but when they did the impeachment hoax, it was a hoax, just a Democrat hoax, which we won. But one of the reasons we won it so easily is that when the president was asked, it was over a phone call with the president, and he said he could have grandstanded and played cute, but he didn't do that. He said, President Trump did absolutely nothing wrong. He said it loud and clear, and the impeachment hoax died right there. He could have said, well, I don't know, I don't know. And I never even told you this, to be honest, but he was like a piece of steel. He said President Trump did nothing wrong. We had a very nice call. He congratulated me on his victory. He just won. And I remember that. He could have played cute,
Oh my
and he didn't
gosh.
play cute. And so I appreciated that. So we have a very good relationship.
Zelensky's
Master
just
strong
biting
arm
his
there,
tongue.
yeah.
He's so mad.
Oh man.
He's like, I need billions from you, so I gotta bite
I
my
have to
lip.
stand here and listen and smile.
Just
The
take
body
it.
language. I want one of those, like, you know, those guys who do the body language analyses.
Yeah.
I want one of those, like, to
I met a guy
riff
like
on that.
We need somebody doing, thought bubbles on what's going on.
I
there.
felt like Zelensky. I was in someone's house who did that for the army. I think he did it during Afghanistan. He body language interpreter. I was like, "You're reading it right now." He's like, "Yeah, I can't turn it off." I was like, "Damn."
Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah, but just to give some context, this is the failed impeachment attempt against President Trump for a call he had with Ukraine, and clearly seeing Zelensky's uncomfortable, said, "You guys did a great job in that. You guys kept me. You guys said that I wasn't doing anything wrong, and that helped me a lot, and I appreciate that. That was big of you." Basically, starting off with a compliment right after. I mean, the difference in tone here is Kamala Harris still very much a war hawk on Ukraine, saying that we're not going to stop until Ukraine wins. They have our unequivocal support. And then you get the meeting with Trump and he says, look, I want a peaceful resolution. We will get a peaceful resolution. My opinion has not changed on the matter, but I'm meeting with both sides and we're going to come to a fair and just agreement. Mm-hmm. And you got Zelensky to basically echo the same thing.
Liberals of the Beltway might actually care about North Carolina if we claimed it was part of Ukraine.
A lot of Ukrainian refugees there. We could just, do that.
True.
No, but I think Harris's response to this, where she just comes out and she criticizes Donald Trump, because what Trump is doing is saying, okay, we have two warring sides. We bring them both to the table. There is no world in which Russia gives back the Crimea and the Donbass region in all of the territory it has taken, right? There's just no practical world where that's going to happen. But that's and the Harris administration, would-be Harris administration, they know that. They know that if they keep pushing and pushing and saying, oh, well, we just unconditional surrender from Russia, which again is never going to happen. They know it's going to push all of Eastern Europe into war, probably drag the United States into war as well. And it's unconscionable that they're like, we're the peace party. We want a proposal for peace. When, again, like, Trump is the one who's actually working on, okay, Putin has shown he can take some of it. You have shown you're not going to give up. War of attrition at this point, right? Like, for the Ukrainians anyway. Let's go with that. But it just makes me so angry that the Biden-Harris, that whole machine, again, it's like, we're going to keep pushing and demand total surrender from a nation that will never give it. It's just unconscionable.
Using Ukrainians as cannon fodder, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, why would it be better? Why would it be better to have another 15, 20 years of war between these two countries? Why wouldn't it be better to at least cut your losses at some point? But the war machine's like, hey, great, we have an endless supply of money, men, and munitions.
They're not out of people yet. We can continue to use them, right?
And any aid that we give, the Mitch McConnell approach is any aid that we give, no, it's actually good for us. It comes back because it pays for
all
people.
These congressional
jobs in Alabama, right? Yeah.
Just completely unconscionable. Anyway, it does feel like the adults are a little bit back in charge, though. Like when Trump met, it was kind of a nice feeling of, okay, it seems like the voice of reason has entered the chat. Surprisingly, like it took this long, but someone would suggest that maybe we should drop peace. Exactly. Okay, we have the vice presidential debate tomorrow.
Yay! I'm excited to hang out with you guys.
I say this one I'm more excited for. Yes. I have to say this one feels like an Alabama versus like an Eastern Carolina matchup. I think even Tim Walz, I saw a report, is pretty nervous right now. He said he's not used to debating against lawyer types, I think was the exact phrase.
He was up in my neck of the woods. He was about 10 miles from my house. He went to some rich donor's place to practice for the debate, and he was campaigning just in a town near mine. I'm like, should I drive over there?
Wasn't he practicing with Pete Buttigieg?
Yeah. I'm not gonna.
Not exactly.
I'm gonna bite my lip on what I think would happen.
Interesting choice of person to help you debate.
Buttigieg, lawyer type.
No, actually, that actually makes sense. I think Buttigieg would probably do a very good J.D. Vance impersonation. I actually think he would. I think he would do very good, but
they're similar in cloth. Buttigieg performs pretty well on the national stage. I think it's probably good.
I mean, Buttigieg is good at mimicking somebody else. He spent his whole life mimicking Barack Obama's speech pattern. So, of course, he should be able to do the same for J.D. Vance.
No, that's a great example of the authenticity gap. Like Pete Buttigieg basically combed his entire life to be in politics in a very creepy, manipulative way to a point where very little of what's going on is authentic. Yep. So, and it's pretty obvious if you look into his history and then you just hear him speak.
Mayor of South Bend, and then he realizes he can't win statewide in Indiana, so he moves to Traverse City, Michigan.
Yeah,
like about an hour from me, and it's like what? Because it's like this little blue pocket in the otherwise super red northern Michigan. But he's going to run for something, maybe governor or who knows what. Terrible.
Not looking forward to it. The only rules difference, though, in this debate is that the microphones will not be muted.
I love how we keep changing our minds here.
So let's play a little example.
Person. I think J.D. Vance has a lot more self-discipline than Donald Trump.
Exactly. But, so let's do a little exercise here. Winning strategy for J.D. Vance in this debate. Winning strategy for Waltz.
Well, the thing is, like Mike Pence got interrupted by Kamala Harris in the VP debates last time, and he was so scripted, and he was not nimble, and he was just couldn't adjust. To what was being thrown at him. Same thing with Paul Ryan against Biden. Biden just kept attacking, if you remember back in 2012. But I think J.D. Vance is totally good at adapting to hostile people.
He's proved himself.
He's done so great on these, Sunday morning political shows and Dana Bash, and just like giving it right back to him and not rolling over. I think J.D. Vance is going to be great. I mean, Tim Walz, I think the reason why he's nervous is he just thinks that he should be able to shout a few things and that'll make a difference. And I'm just waiting for J.D. Vance to say, just shut the hell up. Would you come on? What are you have screaming for? Like, we can actually talk about this like adults. Like, who are you talking? You're like just barking like a seal, just chill out.
But so it's interesting. I think Waltz, I don't think it'll work for him to go on attack or be combative because J.D. Vance is so disciplined and quick.
And used to it.
So I wonder if he intentionally goes a little bit obtuse and doesn't take any direct attacks and plays more the vibes game to make it seem like J.D. Vance would badger him. But
I think that's all he's got. Yeah. I think all Walz has is the vibes game because, I mean, he doesn't come across as the smartest guy. He has had no practice in this kind of back and forth and spontaneous speaking, this exchange. So either he's going to come across as super scripted and like get all frozen, but I think he's more just going to go for vibes and like, hey, America's dad, like here I am.
It's interesting though, like if you think about him, Waltz, like, in the run up to when Kamala was trying to figure out who she's going to have as a running mate, he was going around on the different media outlets and just like bashing Trump and, and it was very effective at that. Made online Twitter go crazy, and they loved it. And Kamala's like, I'm worried about Shapiro being too pro-Jewish, so I'll pick this guy. He's like the attack dog.
Shapiro is Jewish. That's the problem.
I know that. I mean, that's what I'm saying. So then, but like, here's the funniest thing in the world, though. After she nominates him to be the VP running mate, Tim Walz has been almost silent.
Yeah.
He gets out there, he gives a speech here or there, but you don't see him anywhere in the media really anymore.
He visits county fairs, he eats donuts, and he waves, but he doesn't actually speak to anyone.
No, he waves
very
strange. Like a sissy doll I've ever seen. Like what?
Yeah, strange.
What the heck,
it's really weird.
All right, so this kind of segues in kind of nice in my Twilight Zone if you guys are ready.
Oh, hey, are we there already? Wow, time flies.
Speaking of, so I saw Tony was talking about in the chat, there was a choice made by two parties. Someone decided to go to Alabama, Georgia, and then someone decided to go to Michigan, USC. In Michigan.
Nope.
What?
Michigan versus Minnesota.
Oh, sorry. Well, yeah, right, because he's from Minnesota. You're right. Apologies, but it was in the big house.
Brown jug, bro.
And so, speaking of just the thickness of skin, it's not looking great for... I just saw... So this is kind of a part of a larger narrative that I'm trying to weave here, but here's Tim Walz at U of M, and he gets a pretty standard heckle here from someone. Here
Trump 2024, baby!
No, I don't know if you guys saw
is that the middle finger?
No.
So someone just said 2024, and we get a middle finger right here coming at him. And I just thought about how, like, this is a really standard you know, like almost in good fun.
Who
like
did the middle
people would say
finger?
this at Trump. And
To who?
What do you mean?
Waltz didn't do the middle finger to the guy, did he?
Yeah, he did.
Waltz gave the middle finger to the
Yes.
fans.
But he wasn't he couldn't even look at him. That's the thing. Like, it would almost be an opportunity if you were a normal person and you could take stuff like this. You look over, you kind of smile at him, and you know it's funny. Like you're getting heckled. Like it was a pretty innocuous heckle, and then to be that soft to kind of throw a sneak middle finger back at you is like Charmin soft. How could you? That's why he could not go. That's why
grade boy level.
I didn't say whether or not which went to Alabama, Georgia. He could not handle Alabama, Georgia. Like if you're getting heckled at U of M, like Ann Arbor is the most liberal part of Michigan, and you're getting Trump heckles. So in terms of general reception, of course.
I mean, the fans who go to Michigan Stadium aren't as liberal as the people of Ann Arbor.
Right, Josh. So. But do you really think Ann Arbor is going to be the same vibes as Alabama? Tuscaloosa?
No, dude, of course not.
I'm not even close. So Trump goes to the Alabama game and, of course, gets rousing reception. But I did see an interesting article, and the article is that the headline for it is, "Sorry, Harvard, everyone wants to go to college in the South now. The likes of Georgia Tech, Clemson, and Ole Miss are drawing students from the North who want to have fun and save on tuition. The shift is boosting the economies of cities across the region." So some stats on that I saw. We had
and the people are nicer and the women are beautiful. No offense.
Right. The number of Northerners heading to college at Southern public schools has skyrocketed 84% over the past 2 decades and jumped 30% from 2018 to 2022, according to the Wall Street Journal analysis. Better weather, cheaper tuition, and a less politicized environment, and the sense of community during college football Saturdays are the big reasons why college kids are pouring across the Mason-Dixon line to the SEC, admissions officials told the Wall Street Journal.
Nature is healing.
Nature's healing. So just in general, I watched the Alabama-Georgia game because I really think that's the closest thing we have to European soccer in America in terms of fandom. There's a connection to where you're from. The NFL is not close. I'll say it, Josh. You think the NFL is
No. Why are you talking about European soccer and
because
comparing something as good as college football to soccer?
No, he's making an analogy. It's like an SAT problem. Like
I understand, but
European
Josh doesn't like my analogies.
I hate European soccer so much. Why would you smear
good
college football by comparing it to something as disgusting as?
You know, it's disappointing sometimes in the course of doing this show how much culture you lack. But there's this phenomenon called football, and it happened long before American football.
Yeah, football. And football.
The fandom in Europe is tied to family, to land. The fanaticism is off the charts. It's not even close to what we experience in America.
I like all of that except that they play that silly soccer game.
Okay, I understand you. Look, I understand you like soccer. I happen to appreciate soccer. I happen to appreciate culture. I played soccer. It's a great sport. It's very physical. Not as physical as football, of course.
Fun to play, not as fun to watch.
Oh my gosh, I hate it.
I'd probably agree with that in general.
Everything about it.
So my Twilight Zone is I watched the game. It was unbelievable. I generally turned the game off when I saw Alabama went up at least 28. I thought they went up 28-3 in the first quarter. I was like, this game's over. There's no way it comes back. And I wake up the next morning. I was like, oh my gosh, it was a shootout. And unbelievable game. The crowd was insane. And Trump got a huge ovation, of course. And I've had Dixieland Delight stuck in my head. So I see this, and it really did crack me up on Twitter. People were captioning this picture taken. We have 2 players. One, Ryan Williams, who's kind of the star 17-year-old wide receiver on Alabama. And another player. One, we have Psalms. We have a verse from the book of Psalms on someone's eye black, and then the next one is kill everybody. And the caption is duality of man, and then someone commented New Testament versus the Old Testament.
Oh my God.
I saw another comment which was Sunday and Monday.
Yeah, it's just so funny. What a great, whoever captured this is a legend. But then I saw people like, oh my gosh, what a bad example to children everywhere. And I was like, you're not ready for SEC football. Like this is life or death down here, buddy. If you can't handle kill everybody on your eye blacks, then I don't know if we're ready for the SEC. But that's what I got.
Yeah, he actually wasn't calling for anyone's murder, people.
No, it was an attitude.
I hate
of
when
course.
people get like that.
Oh, I know. It's so whiny. And that, honestly, kid's 17, unbelievable winning catch, just crazy performance. It's everything everyone loves about football and culture and sports. It's the biggest game in college football. Georgia, Alabama has been for a long time now. Just great. Loved it. Erica.
Cool. Well, it's interesting because I was also looking at migration here. So we have American college students starting to prefer places in the South. Kind of two threads here. One is in the Catholic Thing this morning, which I love to read after I read the Loop, of course. Auguste Myrat had a review of a book called American Refugees. And the book itself is the story of kind of people who are going from the blue states to the red states. We've covered this phenomenon. The college preference is part of it. But in general, looking for more conservative-minded community, some more family-friendly, somewhere they can raise their kids, somewhere they can save for retirement, a lot of economics, but also just people are friendlier and happier in general in these states. And so people go there. Great. So then he has this interesting switch, though, where he decides to depart from book review and draw an analogy between this. He goes, innumerable parallels are reflected in other migrations happening in the West, specifically in the realm of religion. For just as people are leaving blue states for red states, Catholics have been leaving progressive parishes for more conservative ones. So he ties that whole movement for economic reasons to what we've talked about, covered a lot here, sort of the rise of conservatism. And so I'm thinking about our family. We drive past probably 2 other parishes at this point. Used to be a lot more, closed a lot of churches. We drive past 2 other parishes to get to a liturgy that is more reverently celebrated. And we recently were upbraided for this, where we are supposed to, as Catholics, stick to our geographic parish.
Who said that?
Yeah, who said that?
That has included older, not to be generationally biased here, but boomer Catholics and members of the clergy, right? Who would rather you go to the parish where your house is.
This is like anti-school choice.
So I wanted your take on this, Josh. I just wanted to open it up.
It's like school choice for Catholics.
No, yeah. My kids were like, why are we going further to go to church? Because Father gives absolutely great homilies, and I need it, and you need it, and we're going here because they understand, this priest understands Jesus. Mm-hmm. This is where we're going. And so I'm not going to be bullied into that kind of stuff. Oh, no, go to the place that's close. I used to live in Hamden, just like you, Erica. I'm like, this parish is terrible. I'm like, we got to go, and we end up going to St. Mary's. I absolutely, you don't owe it. Like, we're not married to our geographic location. I mean, that is the dumbest thing ever. No, thank you. No.
Yeah, and I think for us, it's a big part of it is our children too, because the liturgy is a teacher, and we aren't going to go to a liturgy where there are people like talking in between the readings, where there's like a parish culture of lack of reverence, or we are church, look at us around our table of the Lord, and singing the Haagen-Dazs songs. It's really important when you have small children who are being formed by what they see.
Almost like
Sunday.
Worship matters.
It's almost like lex orandi, lex credendi kind of thing going on.
Okay, hold up for a second.
Hold up.
I got Vince B in the chat says, It makes sense. It's easy to form community closest to where you live. And I actually completely agree with this. Now, here's where I'm not even pushing back on what you're saying. I think in a perfect world, we have quality control in the Catholic Church.
Thank you.
We've lost quality control. If every Catholic Church had quality control and we could trust what was going on and that what was going on was good and going to be the same as what's going on, 2 counties over, then you wouldn't have to travel. I think the main question here is, why do Catholics have to travel 40 minutes to go to a different church is the real question that should be asked.
Why do you have to travel so far to find Catholicism?
Right, exactly. Because to be frank, I do go downtown for Mass, and it's impossible. It's next to impossible because I actually have a coworker who does it. It's impossible to get downtown. I have a kid. I have one on the way. To get downtown on a work day because you got to fight the downtown traffic. Mm-hmm. If I was close to the church, I would be able to be more involved in daily activities. And when my kids get older, I want them to be involved in teen groups, catechism. I want our family to be able to go to the picnics, everything like that. Like, I do want that, but it is impossible. Mm-hmm. And so even if you look at the original design for parishes in America, a lot of them were actually ethnic. And that's why you go,
neighborhood churches.
You drive through Chicago, you see all the steeples. And unfortunately, a lot of those are basically relics at this point. But at one point, it was
You would
Italian
have that
immigrants,
family, right? You'd
right?
have that network.
Italian
culture.
immigrants put up their own hard-earned money and talents to build unbelievable cathedrals for their people. There's actually a lot of contention between different ethnic parishes, but we've completely lost that at this point. So if you see an ethnic parish, it's really just kind of said in passing. It doesn't have a lot of actual meaning. Not all of them, of course, but you've lost the bond basically.
Yes,
for this
but part of that
community.
is the bishop's fault for not understanding and recognizing and respecting those traditions enough.
Right, and we talked about with Vatican II, poor implementation. I think a lot of this truly stems from there. It's where we lose the quality control. That's why we have the Kumbaya masses that no one in the right mind would want to attend. And then you have to drive 45 minutes to get actual legitimate Orthodox liturgy. Sorry, not legitimate, because technically by the language of the law, they're using the
valid
right words.
masses, right.
Valid masses. I
They're
gotta be careful
valid,
with my
but-
words. But
right.
really something I would not want to sit through or want my family to be a part of. So we have to travel. So,
Yeah, and I guess I wish the question was like when a priest finds out that we drive, 25 minutes rather than 8 minutes to his church, that the question would be, why do you do that? Out of genuine curiosity to find out, like maybe why are so many people from my geographic parish
Right.
not here? That would be the sort of like growth-oriented, growth mindset that you'd want to see in someone who's interested in bringing back people who are geographically there to build that local community. But again, I don't know what it is.
Instead, we have a
Pride or
church
the
leadership.
tribalism?
We have a church leadership who's like, wait a minute, these people are responding to Latin masses. Let's smoke out Latin masses and make sure no one has them.
That's
And
the
I'm not
next
even a
step.
Latin Master guy. But again, yes, it drives you kind of crazy that if you love your church more deeply and you care about it more reverently, then the church is like, why?
You're
Why do you care
judgy.
so much? Why-
You're
just
too
shut up and
judgy.
Enjoy the Haagen-Dazs.
yeah, although
And we
I have
did
to
another homily on Pharisees, and they're like, okay.
I have to say,
knew
and I'm
that
sure
would be-
people here have this experience as well. A lot of times, some really awesome, enthusiastic young priests get placed in churches that maybe previously were struggling, either dying, they're not getting enough people, or didn't have good liturgy, and they go and they try to start something good. And those people really do need support. There's been examples in my life where great priest has been somewhere a little bit more local, so maybe we go there for daily mass, or we think about going there more often to really try to support that initiative, because it is such an uphill battle for a lot of these people to go and change culture. So if you have that going on in your local community, of course, I'm not telling anyone what to do, but it can be good if that's happening to try to support as much as you possibly can that initiative in your local community.
It's going to take a lot of reform, though.
Yeah, no doubt. It's an uphill battle. So,
Many years.
okay, Josh, Twilight Zone.
Well, so they had a World Economic Forum, I guess, and John Kerry, who was ran for president himself, 2004, almost won, and he became Secretary of State, and then the climate czar or whatever. And
Devout Catholic, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he said,
Quote unquote.
so he decided to do a little riff on free speech.
Yeah.
Did you catch this?
Quiet
Well, I
part
saw
out
it.
loud.
Yeah. Do you want to play the clip, or do you want to read
Let's
it?
play.
Yeah, why
Okay.
don't you play it?
You just
All
got
right,
it.
voice is
yeah.
Oh
going.
my gosh.
So tough. Everybody's wrestling with that right now. And I think the dislike of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. And it's part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. It's really hard to govern today.
I hate this guy so
You
much.
can't, there's no, the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact, are kind of, been eviscerated
He's admitting
to a certain
it!
degree.
Yeah.
And people go, and then people self-select where they go for their news or for their information. And then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time in the
Build
45, 50
consensus.
years I've been involved in this. And there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to
Oh my gosh.
win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change.
So this really tells you, do we actually even live in a republic anymore? The ruling elites for the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years have used the media referees to filter information and make sure that we Americans don't get the information that we want. Now, along comes the internet and social media, the ability for us as citizens to share information. Hey, maybe you didn't see this. Maybe the referees and the filters didn't share this information with you. And this is a problem for our managerial elites. They don't like the fact that you have the freedom to share information. And so this man, John Kerry, is a disgusting human being. He thinks you have no dignity and right to share your opinions. He thinks the First Amendment in the United States is a problem,
right?
Not the solution. Is a disgusting human being. John Kerry should be ashamed of himself to be even seen in public anymore. The fact of the matter is, the internet and social media has allowed us as Americans to share information with other people. And the ruling class used all the network media and all these filters, their referees, to try to legitimize everything that they were doing, because they already had their agenda, their pro-war agenda, and shoving everything down our throats and pushing social left-wing causes from porno books in schools. But the fact is, now with freedom, with internet, with social media, we've been able to tell people, maybe we shouldn't have porno books in schools. Maybe we shouldn't be fighting, a land war in Ukraine. This is kind of dumb. And the left-wing elites are freaking out about this because they were used to having, Tom Brokaw and all the network anchors to carry their water for them. That's what they expect the media to be like. They don't expect the media to be fair. They expect the media to be stenographers, and they do not like the fact that you have freedom. Remember this when you vote. Remember this. That man is disgusting. John Kerry should be ashamed of himself. An absolute garbage human being.
It's crazy that anyone would feel comfortable enough to say that the First Amendment's a problem.
Oh,
yeah. I mean,
that's
very
treason on its head.
Very comfortable at the World Economic Forum.
And I'm going to go on record. I've never seen anything good come out of the World Economic Forum. Why is it still a thing? Everything I see makes me mad.
The only good thing are when the dissidents actually get up and make a speech. Like, I think Javier Milei gave a speech this year telling them that they were all just full of it and he wasn't going to listen to them anymore. It's about it.
But the contents of that speech were saying that it's bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything about it's been bad.
Yeah. That's it. It's just an opportunity for dissidents. That's all. Ugh.
Angry populist Tom.
Yeah.
We're destroying the World Economic
Forum. We haven't had one in a while. We got to get
No, Josh hit us with a good rant. I completely agree. Great. No one should feel comfortable saying that we should get rid of the First Amendment.
Just remember, our managerial elites, this oligarchy, they don't look at China's social credit system as scary. They envy it, and they wish they had it here. Right. They wish they could knock you every time you said something on social media.
You know why?
They wish they could knock your points down so you wouldn't be able to do anything. Buy a car, go on a bus ride? No. They want you prisoners in your own home.
Exactly. And when he kept repeating this phrase, just drives me up the wall, building consensus. It's so hard to build consensus. What he's talking about there, do you know what societies have the most consensus? That would be the People's Republic of China. 100% consensus. North Korea, they all are consenting.
When someone asks for consensus, when someone asks for consensus and unity, they're like, we want you to shut up and agree with us. That's what they're saying. We want it bipartisan, consensus, unity. How about you shut your mouth?
It reminds me of the accusation of Trump being polarizing. It's like, I'm just so tired of the polarization. I'm so tired of Trump.
What they mean is they don't like Trump because he fights back.
Exactly, right.
He should be a good little boy like John McCain, Manchurian candidate, and just do what he's told.
Right. Yeah, it's like, he disagrees and he's actually willing to do something about it. That's why he's polarizing, I guess.
Yeah. The consensus ruling elite, they love the John McCains, the Mitt Romneys of the world, because they're the Washington Generals basketball team to the left-wing Harlem Globetrotters when they get out there and play. They want the GOP to be a bunch of patsies that just lose every game. And Trump was the guy who's like, well, why are we losing? Why don't we actually try to win some of these games? And Republicans are like, what? We're not used to this.
Go off, King. That was solid, Josh. Thank you for that Twilight Zone.
That's awesome.
The chat loved it, by the way. Vox Populi. Okay. Good episode today. Again, we will be live for the VP debate. We will be live 20 minutes before, as my pledge. Come hang out with us. It's a lot of fun. Erica breaks out the bourbon.
I'm going to be eating New Haven pizza.
You're bringing pizza? Okay.
I'm bringing pizza.
Maybe I should bring some Jets. I'll bring
settle
Jets.
Down, Josh.
Josh is come on, dog. Acting now for you. So yes, come join us. We'll be live 20 minutes before. That'll be Tuesday. We're going to have a lot of fun. And then we're going to have a Wednesday episode going over everything that we experienced together. It'll be very unifying. But thank you guys for joining. Leave a like if you're hanging out in the chat right now and you haven't left a like in this episode. Like it for us. Appreciate that. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Apple Podcast, Spotify, leave us a review. That helps out a lot. And also, last week we got retweeted by Jack Posobiec, I think, and he has a humongous following. So I was looking at the live counter, and all of a sudden, we had 5,000 people in the live. And it was on Twitter. So we're over on Twitter. If you want to watch live on Twitter, we're there as well. And I thought we got hacked. So I was waiting for some weird messages. And that was right around when I was sharing the Thomas the Tank Engine face, I think. I didn't know if that was correlated. It was strange. But thank you for that. And share us around. That's the best thing you can do. If you guys like the program, share us around. Have people come join us live, 11 a.m. Eastern time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But we appreciate you all. Super grateful for this audience. Pray for us. St. Thomas More, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and St. Fidelis, pray for us. And we'll see you guys in the